Hey guys, what's going on? This is David Chen, and you're joining Pandanomics podcast. And I have a very special guest of mine, very well-known, amazing businessman, motivational speaker, my good and compassionate friend, David Meltzer. Thanks for joining us. It's such an honor to have you here today.
You are my favorite Kung Fu Panda, man. I'd be here any day, especially today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about yourself first. Give a little intro for the people who might not know who you are, and kind of how you got to the journey where you're at.
Sure. My journey started just by money. I always say that because I grew up so poor that money was a directive of mine. I had single mom, 6 kids, 5 boys and a girl. She worked 2 jobs, but I was always happy. I actually have a quantum gene and quantum genetic of happiness. So I have to take awareness of that, because if I help other people, which is my main mission, to be happy, I have to realize that not everybody was born with the same quantum being that I am. I was just born happy. But the only time I wasn't happy was when I catch my mom crying over financial stress, right? Couldn't afford food, car breaks down, just your normal poor people stuff and poor people problems. And I would, tell myself at 5 years old when my dad left that I was going to be rich to buy my mom a house and a car, because I figured if I could buy a house and a car for my mom, then I'll always be happy, because my mom would be happy. Because most of the things that made her unhappy was we didn't have a house or a car. So I worked really hard. My mom had, probably typical to your mom as well, right? Doctor, lawyer, or failure. And didn't believe the fetus was fully developed till after graduate school. The typical, I always joke around, you're my Kung Fu Panda, but my mom was a 3rd degree black belt in the martial arts. And people look at her like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, she's 3rd degree black belt in the martial art of Jewish guilt. And that's why my siblings are so successful. They all went to Harvard, Penn, Columbia. People ask me some parenting advice real quick. I'll be all over the place, but if you want to be a good parent, there's only 2 things you need to do. This is what my mom told me. 1, wake your kids up early so they don't have time to get in trouble at night. And 2, literally guide them with guilt. And those 2 things, your kids are going to be super successful. And she proved it. But anyway, I went to college to play football, got ran over my first play. I remember lying on my back when Christian Okoye, the Nigerian nightmare, ran me over. I said, doctor, lawyer, or failure. So I was going to be a doctor. But like most 18-year-olds, I had no clue what I was doing. I just wanted to be a doctor to be rich. Every decision I made was based off of money. I lived in a world of not enough. So for me, I would beg, borrow, and steal for money. Money was my God. It was my identity. So every decision I made was guided by like, how much? I was born that kid, and I just continued to identify, okay, how much? I'll do that. How much? How much am I going to make? So everything to me was, okay, I'll be a doctor. How much? And I visited my oldest brother, who was not that way. He was a doctor and wanted to be a doctor since he was 5 to help people. And so I went into the hospital to see him, and I look around and I'm like, I'm 18 years old. I was like, man, I hate hospitals. He's like, what are you talking about? You're in pre-med, moron. I said, yeah, but I'm going to be a sports doctor. I'll be on the sidelines in training rooms. He goes, oh my gosh. He goes, David, doctors have to be in hospitals all the time. He said, this was the lesson though. Be more interested than interesting. And that lesson, my older brother had passed already now, and I live by that motto. I look at everybody and everything. How can I be more interested than interesting? What's that extra question? Where's the opportunity, especially now with this crisis? I'm, with you actually, right? I'm looking not only to stabilize and help people, but where does the opportunity? How can I be more interested in this than interesting? And that one guy changed my life. So I immediately switched to be a lawyer so I could be rich. But now under the guise of being more interested, I reversed engineered what law school I was going to be to by how much money I could make. So I found out what job pays the most out of law school, what law school had most people do that job or the best contacts in that space. And it was Tulane University in New Orleans, admiralty law, oil and gas law, and oil and gas litigators were the highest paying job out of law school. So I went there, all off of money. And then I graduate and I get the oil and gas litigation job, but because I'm after money, I'm interviewing for all types of sales, selling golf clubs in China, like ridiculous jobs, because I want to make the most money. I end up getting offered a job in the internet, selling legal research online. So I go to my mom, and my worthy advisor, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I got a law job that pays 6 figures. I want to buy you a house and a car. I'm gonna be a great litigator. I can sell ice to Eskimos. This is gonna be good. But I also got this job in the internet, and they said my comp plan's 250 grand plus expenses. And I go, I really want to take that job. My mom said, you ain't taking that job. You're a real lawyer. That internet is a fad. Do not take that job, please. I'm like, oh, shoot, because I always listen to my mom. For the first time in my life, second most valuable lesson, right? Just because someone loves you, and probably like your mom, our moms love us too much, probably told us we're way better than we are, but I couldn't go with it, man. I had to vote for what I wanted for the first time in my life. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice. A second grade teacher, she knew nothing about business. I knew she wanted my well-being and stability, but I had a feeling the internet wasn't a fad. 9 months out of law school, I was a millionaire, bought my mom a house and a car. Once again, reinforcing money buys love and happiness, because in my mind, I was my favorite, the favorite for the first time. My siblings all went to the Ivy Leagues. It was the first time I ever felt superior to my siblings, and I felt like my mom loved me more. I got more attention because I bought her a house and a car. Then I end up, working for West Publishing, which sells to Thomson Reuters for $3.4 billion in 1995, and I get some real money. Then I go to the Silicon Valley and learn my superpower, which is to raise money, whether it's for charity or corporations. I learned that I have a superpower that I'll never go broke because I know how to raise money, and once again, reinforcing money buys happiness and love. Then somehow I end up being the CEO of the world's first smartphone, the first Windows CE device. I'm hanging with Gates and Jobs, and people are stroking $10 million checks to me, and it was just stupid money. Once again, reinforcing. Oh, and beyond that, when I was in law school, talk about how money driven I was. When I was in law school, my last year of law school, I was dating a very wealthy girl, and I ended up getting engaged, not only because she was great, but I loved her father, but her father was super rich. And I know in the back of my mind, now that I'm 52, I know that had a lot to do with getting engaged so young, was I knew that was my key to being rich. But then I break that off. Now I'm a multimillionaire, and I end up marrying my dream girl from the 4th grade. I asked her to go study at 6th grade camp, threw an egg at her. She told me no. So in my mind, right, everything was money. My best I couldn't imagine that my wife loved me for who I was. I always thought it was my money until I lost everything and she stuck with me. Then I knew she really loved this gorgeous guy here. But before that, I thought it was all this. And here's the greatest thing is, if you would have asked me, I had a golf course, a ski mountain. I was CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment at this point, the most notable sports agency. Everybody wanted my job. Everybody wanted to be me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't happy.
Right. Right.
So I thought money was the key. So I bought more things and different things and got sadder and sadder, surrounded myself with the wrong people, the wrong ideas, started doing the wrong things. And, 3 things happened real quickly. I have to tell the order of this that changed my life. Number 1, when I was 30 years old, still doing well, 30 years old, my dad left when I was 5. He was my hero. Back in the 70s, my dad made a lot of money, married a gorgeous girl closer to my age than hers, than his. And I would actually talk about guilt. I tell my mom, why couldn't she be more like my dad? Meanwhile, my dad wasn't even paying child support. But you're 5, 6, and 7, you don't know anything. But at 10 years old, my dad forgot my birthday. And it rocked me a little bit, but what really changed my life is my hero forgot my birthday. And when I called him to say, hey, Dad, how could you forget my birthday? I'm 10. And my son turns 10 tomorrow, by the way. So this is significant. I know what 10 is like because I watched him last night. And thank goodness I'm still his hero. And I don't say that out of ego. I say that out of blessing. That is the greatest blessing in the world. But I asked him, how could you forget my birthday, which I can never forget my son's birthday. He said, I didn't forget your birthday. I don't believe in birthdays. Why that was significant is because at that minute at 10, I realized that my dad was a liar. My dad was a cheater. He was an overseller, a back-end seller, and manipulator. And if he was going to tell me that lie, right, that he would tell me anything, and he went from being my hero to my zero. And at 30 years old, my dad sent me a birthday present for the first time in 20 years. And I was trying to reestablish a relationship with him. I was in a much better place, loving myself. I felt that I could gain understanding of him and he would understand me more. So he sends me this birthday present. I'm opening it and I start crying when I open it and put it on. My wife's like, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because it fits me." I said, "My dad took the time to find out what size and, you know, maybe even have it custom made because it fit me perfectly." And I said, "I think my dad understands what's going on now. This is really something I want. You know, no matter what you say, you always want your dad's love." So I opened up the jacket, you know, looking to see if it said happy birthday or especially made for Dave Meltzer. No, he tore out all the lining in the pockets. So now I got angry and I call him and I'm like, "Dad, why would you do this?" He's like, "What?" I said, "Why'd you send me a jacket with no pockets?" He said, "Well, it's not for wearing." I said, "Why would you send me a jacket to not to wear?" He says, "It's to remind you that you're just like me. Now go hang it in your closet to remind you that you're just like me." And I said, "I'm nothing like you, man. You're a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, overseller, back-end seller. I'm nothing like you." He said, "Hang it in your closet. Remind yourself you're just like me. You're not going to be the richest man in the cemetery. You can't take anything when you're gone, buddy. You're too focused on money. Money doesn't buy you happiness and love. Trust me. I've been through 2 wives. I've been through millions of dollars. It doesn't buy you happiness and love." And I said to him, "F you, you don't get it. Stay out of my life." Years later, I'm running Lee Steinberg, and I go to my best friend who asked my wife to go steady at 6th grade camp, and she said no. I threw 8 at her. But I asked my best friend out golfing, and I said to him, "Hey, man, how come you don't hang out with me anymore?" I said, "I'm running Lee Steinberg. You and I can go to the Super Bowl together, the Pro Bowl, the Masters. This is what we dreamed of. I worked so hard we could hang out at the greatest people in the greatest places." And he looked at me and he said, "I don't like who you hang out with." I said, "Oh, come on, man. I'm not doing what those guys are doing. Come on. I'm not like those guys." And he looked at me and he said, "You can lie to me, Dave, but don't lie to yourself." I went home crying because I knew it was true. 2 weeks later, I'm partying with Little John, the rapper, in Las Vegas. And I lied to my wife. I told her I had a business meeting. I went to the Grammy Award party with Little John. So I came home intoxicated and high, like 5:30 in the morning. And there was my wife waiting. And for the first time ever, my wife told me she wasn't happy, that she was going to leave me, that I better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, or not only would I lose her, but I'd lose my family. And it was her feeling that I probably wouldn't live through the year if I didn't make changes in my life, that I was on the wrong road, and she was worried about me. Now, I wish I could tell you at that moment, I'm like, "Oh, you're right." I just got pissed off, went into my room, woke up the next morning, even more closed-minded and pissed. I couldn't believe how rude or inconsiderate she was after all I'd given her. I had a huge home and all these cars and a nanny living there, and you know, she never worked, and how dare I paid for her graduate school, and you know, the list is going on and on in my mind. How dare her? I bought this love. How you can't refund it, you know? And I'm there about to, you know, call a lawyer, you know, figuring out what the best divorce lawyer is so I could take everything I could from her, right? Everything. I remember, and then I look over in the closet, right? There it was, man, that jacket. That jacket was hanging there. And I get choked up today because I just realized I was just like my dad. I was a liar. I was a cheater, manipulator, back-end selling, money-focused person, and I was going to make the changes. And that day, I went and asked for forgiveness of myself, and then asked forgiveness of my wife, and then moved to understand money in a different way, that it doesn't buy love, it doesn't buy happiness, but it allows me to shop. And if I shop for the right things to help others, to allow it to come through me, then I could be happy. But if I shop for the wrong things, like I was going to be miserable or dead. And so I shifted that paradigm that all money would come through me for other people with appreciation to add value to, but money was super important. It was the currency I knew of this vibration. Most people deny it. I don't deny it. Money is super important. I just do the right things with it. I buy community centers in Africa. I support my local community, my state, my government, my country, the world. I inspire people with it. And, you know, I drive a Chevy Volt, you know, that's the way I live my life. And from there, I was blessed. Warren Moon, the Hall of Fame quarterback, and I founded Sports One Marketing. And then the last 3 years, I wanted to build a platform to inspire other people to be happy. So I started a TV show, a podcast. I write books. I speak around the world. I'm one of the top executive coaches with a simple mission of empowering over 1 billion people to be happy on earth. And now we can get into knowing and sharing my story and journey. We can get into some good advice on what we can do with what's going on today.
You know, I appreciate that story. And I kind of want to tell everyone how we met and why that's significant to what you said on your story. I think I had heard about you. I mentioned to you about 6-7 months ago when I was doing Charlie Stevens' live show. And that's our initial connection. He mentioned you. We were sponsoring the show. So we had a discussion. Through Charlie, during the Founders Night, we met Joseph. We met Mike Mamula, yourself. Mike came down to Arizona. We talked. We know Gary, Steve. We have a core list of friends. So about 6 months, there was a discussion meeting you going from there. The energy came because as much as I thought I had bombed the first Gary meeting I had talked to and the first other meetings, it became one of those things where all those people that we're talking about are all businessmen. They're all successful businessmen, but they all want to help people. And that's the difference between the current situation that you and I and everyone else are trying to do and some of these other people who are mentoring and teaching these young kids. And they've never even had a sales job or a sales thing or any background until they made everyone put money in and now they can grow. And I'm not calling anyone out in particular, but that's the difference between you and I. Where you and I bonded, I think, is it was the energy. It was the good vibes. It was the kindness that because we were trying to do the right thing, it led us to meet someone else, which led us to meet someone else, which now allows me and you, as we just talked about 5 minutes ago before we started, working on some deals that are really trying to help people. I think the hardest part for guys like you and I who grew up as underdogs or trying to figure things out, we talked about how we have very similar personalities and backgrounds. It was more sadness that turned into anger, and the only way that you could reflect on winning was money, because that was the only self-worth you had in yourself, right? That because it was never enough. You were never going to be smarter than your siblings or your friend or the valedictorian, but you knew you had something, so you were utilizing this. And then the only movies I could ever watch, I'm sure you're saying, was Wall Street, or movies that were indicative on making greed and money, but they weren't indicative on being good human beings, right? And in the end, everyone loses, right? I always talk about how billionaires blow their brains out, right? BBB. And it's because they really are that unhappy. And so the fact that you share that story, I got equally choked up, and I still have chills on my body, and I really appreciate that story because it's important for our listeners to know how real this is. This isn't just about us rooting and tooting and going from there, but it's a journey that me and you and the group of friends that we've developed are trying to go through and do the right things. And there's times where it's like, we could be doing the wrong things because we know we can, but there is no real fulfillment. And so for all the young listeners that I have around the world, take advice from Dave, who's been in it myself. That's not the right way to live, right? And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, and I think understanding that we're still on that journey, both you and I, we're still learning lessons. We're still practicing, these different things that we're learning on how to enjoy the consistent, persistent pursuit of our own potential and learn what our potentials are, to find, where these gifts are, knowing that everyone already knows their why, which is to help other people. And we're looking for the what and the how now. And then being able to facilitate when we learn the what's and the how's, how do we pass that on to others so they can get there sooner?
I really appreciate this. I know that we're right now, as we're recording this, we are dealing with a potential huge pandemic with us here in the U.S. Obviously, it's already happened in the world. And we want to talk about some of the small business things and things that people can do. But before I get there, I just want to talk about one more thing as we move into shift. When the reality hit, how did you check your ego? And then not be afraid of other people's opinions, because the most important opinion was your family's, your own, because I went through that journey myself, and it was not easy, because you made one person happy, you felt like you lost everything else, and then you felt like you weren't, like you didn't know who you were anymore as a person, right? You're reinventing yourself at 35. How did you do that?
Yeah, and it was my wife's guidance of taking stock in who I was. If I had to sit down and determine at that time, when I was looking for forgiveness of self, what my personal values were, my experiential values were, what my giving values were, what my receiving values were, and forgive myself for not being those things, and then allowing myself to live with gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. And just sticking to the fact that, I remember one of my friends when I went through the journey, and a lot of people not only said nasty things and laughed at me, scoffed at me, but people piled on BS and had lawsuits against me, and I was the scapegoat. You know, I always tell a story about, it was amazing how many of my friends begged me to take like 10 or 25 grand investment from them when I wanted them to be no part of my business. But because I had the Midas touch and they loved me. And then when they lost millions of dollars because they mismanaged their lives, they blame me because I was the most public figure that went down. So they didn't lie to anyone, but they're like, yeah, I went bankrupt because I invested in Dave Meltzer's company. No, you didn't. No, you didn't go bankrupt because you invested in Dave Meltzer's company, but go ahead and say it, right? And that's one of my friends said, David, I would rather people hate you for who you are than love you for who you're not. So just be who you are, and everything will be fine. And I started voting for what I wanted, just like when I went out of law school. I started voting for what I wanted to get it elected into my own life. And I realized one thing. My dad had told me, people, because he was an entrepreneur, didn't listen to his parents, had a law degree, got into real estate. He had a lot of great qualities, quantum qualities that I have. And he said, man, they will laugh at you, they will scoff at you, they will make fun of you, but eventually they'll applaud you. And that's exactly what happened in my life. I just stuck to what it was and what I can be, and stuck to my values. And to this day, 13 years later, that's what I follow. I teach people gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. And that's what today is going to help people through this crisis, which I consider, this is a growing period. This is a learning curve. This is an opportunity. And there's two components to this opportunity. One is stabilize. The other is maximize the opportunity. You got to stabilize first, put your face mask on first, then go ahead and put your face mask on other people, with those who have the most potential first, and work your way down. Just the Southwest airline. You got 4 kids, put your mask on, put the first mask on your kid with the most potential, then go down the line. Do that with the opportunities that exist. But let's stabilize what's going on for yourself, then stabilize the next highest potential, stabilize the next highest potential, and then you can look for opportunities within there to help other people by making more money, helping more people, and having more fun. And you and I are doing this together. We are helping millions of people and making millions of dollars together, proving what I'm talking about in a true sense of abundance. And I just take your skills, your knowledge, your desire, align it with my skills, knowledge, and desire, all the relationship capital. More opportunities are coming to us every day. It's so funny. Everyone else is laying off people. They're focusing in on what they don't want and getting more what they don't want. You and I, since we've been friends, it's like every day I'm like, man, tell that Chen guy to slow it down. I got to catch up to him. There's so much opportunity, and we're helping people. It's not a scarce thing. None of it's coming to us, right? It's all going to come through us. The products we sell, the things that we're doing come through us to help everybody. And we're just going to create more abundance with it and help more people stabilize, because there's going to be some financial stress and other things that we can help people with.
No, and I appreciate that. And you're right. You have to stabilize and then grow. And I think the big important thing that everyone says is the hardest journey is the one where you have to sit there and admit to yourself what the situations are. And then, like you just said, there's a positive and negative, and it's so negative right now and so dark and gloomy, and it's so easy to be caught up only because we care. It's not necessarily because the negative is feeding the negative. I care that the elderly aren't going to get what they want. I worry about my parents. My parents are on lockdown. They're not allowed to go out and run around the restaurants. Even myself, my fiance is like, look, you'll be 40 this year. There are people in the 40s, you're higher rate than me at 28. So you can't even go out. And that's what people need to understand. It's a selfishness. I think the thing that drives me nuts now is you do see a lot of these young guys, well, I'm not going to get, and they're running around, having good times, partying, but they're not thinking that they're going to transfer it maybe to their mom and their dad, and that guilt will never ever subside. And so that thought process is the same problem and the same thought process that we had as business people. That wasn't the right way, because it was about me and what I wanted, and I didn't care about anybody else. And even at this time, people were acting like that. For a mom and pop company who is dealing with something like this right now, who's unsure, who now in California, as of yesterday, you have to shut down the restaurants. We're looking at this in our city, in El Paso, some of the cities. How are they going to survive, or what advice would you give them to maintain and to stay positive during this process?
Yeah, so number one, take care of self, meaning their person, right? Nothing matters if your heart stops. So
right.
Even though we have small businesses and opportunities and employees and overhead and leases and mortgages and insurance and all those things that are concerning you at this moment, make sure you're prioritizing your heart. You cannot let your heart stop during this, right? You will live for another day to fight another thing. If you got to watch Rocky, that's what put me over the top. Is I saw that guy get knocked down like 18 different times, and I would say, if you can look up, you can get up, because that guy has heart. Have your heart, take care of your heart, and be healthy. Then work on these things one at a time by stabilizing what you can. Look, if you can keep your business at any level, the heart ticking, just stay in business. Make things happen. You can go to your landlord and say, you know what? I'm not going to pay you rent. Add the rent to the one extra month on the back end. I'll leave early. You got a 3-year lease. Tell him in month 37, you'll pay an extra month rent and you won't be in there. He can go ahead. If he doesn't renew you, he can do that. Right? There's so many, people, they allow things to grow arms and legs instead of understanding that negative energy pushes us to either better the situation we're in or moves us to a better situation. It's that simple. Negative things either allow us to better the situation that we're in or move us to a better situation. That's the mathematical truth of the universe. The problem is people focus in on the negative energy and believe it takes them to a negative spot, and they're not even aware that it's taking them something better. This is a huge opportunity to make it better. And so as long as you're focused in on, like I am, I keep my business in business every day, whatever that means. So when I'm having conversations, people, it's about keeping my business in business, because I know when it all comes through, that as long as I'm in business, I'll evolve, just like I always have, into something better, bigger, and greater from the lessons that I've learned. And if I've acted through integrity, character, honor, these other things by helping other people with the same, I'll be in a much better spot. People won't forget you acting the right way, right? Desperate people do dumb stuff, but the people that in desperate time that do good deeds will always be remembered. Those are the ones that stand out, and you have an opportunity to be one of those people, to live with character and integrity. People will remember those people that manage expectations, were able, not to run away, not to be negative, not to steal, lie, cheat, and manipulate, but to illuminate and take care of the issues that are at hand.
That is so important right now. And again, that goes with everything with people hoarding and stockpiling, things like that, and helping others. It's consistent, right? It doesn't matter if it's business, it's all survival, it's tactics. But I love what you said about the negative. The negative doesn't have to create negativity, it can create positivity and helping others and growing and expanding. And I think a lot of people need to understand that that is a great perspective look at things, because it just makes life easier and simple. Because we, like, as anyone noticed today, we have zero control, right? We think we have all the control. Well, we're controlling ourselves and our lives. Pandemic spreads, and literally everyone's like, I had everything figured out. My 401k, this and this and this and this. My 401k is now 201k is what people are joking about. And there's no control, right? The only control is your own emotions and your way of trying to get that going. And so I appreciate you sharing that message. What is a message that you would also send to some of these local entrepreneurs right now who are trying to find the right path to doing the right things and not following the wrong roads that we had to learn, and really trying to do it right while inspiring and helping others?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things that you can look at as an entrepreneur, freelancer, someone that's working through this opportunity right now. And notice I said this opportunity, not this crisis, it's this opportunity, is 3 things. Really look at your skills. So what I do right now is I said, okay, and we've done this together, David. You may not, consciously know it, but subconsciously, I say to myself, okay, what are my skills? What are David's skills? And how can we utilize those to provide value? And where are there holes in my skills that I can find someone that can provide value to me?
Right.
Then I look at my knowledge, right? I have all this situational knowledge because I lived through 97, 2001, 2008, and into this 2020. And I say to myself, okay, I have extraordinary knowledge in certain situations. How can I utilize that with Dave's knowledge? And where are the holes of the knowledge, and who has that knowledge that I can go find? We're so lucky because things are so accessible today, even if you're quarantined in that house, the internet, look at us right here. This was never possible, right? We're accessible to each other. There's no difference other than you having to smell the fact that I wear Old Spice, right? There's no difference. But honestly, knowledge and skills, and then finally, understanding true inspiration or desire. You don't have to get motivated. This is a great opportunity to understand that when we bring the light and the love and the lessons to a situation, right? We don't pray for it. We bring it to, we don't want to be delivered from the light, the lessons. We bring it to, we're already connected to this, man. This is an opportunity to clean the connection to what we're inspired to and allow it to inspire others to come through us to do so. So the three components of any entrepreneur is it's a great opportunity to take inventory and develop your skills with other people's, find the holes and the help that you need. Same thing with knowledge. And then finally, really hone your skills of inspiration so that when you come through these more challenging times, it's like weight training, or, when you're running with all those bags of weight and then they finally take the weight off and you're like, oh my God, you're just flying. That's what it's going to feel like 3 to 6 weeks from now. As long as you stay in business, as long as you keep a strong mindset that the negative perceived energy is just pushing you either to make your situation better or pushing you to a better situation.
I appreciate that. Dave, thank you so much for your time. Can you please go ahead and drop your social media handle so everyone can follow?
Yeah, first, I'm doing lives every day from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Just text me at 949-298-2905, 949-298-2905. If not, it's at David Meltzer on LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. My website, go ahead, is D Meltzer, first initial last name, dmeltzer.com. David Chen, thank you so much, my favorite panda. I look forward to making some money today and helping some people.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And everyone stay safe out there.
You too. Take care.
You too.
Thank you.